Hello, my name is Dr. Olamide Brown, and I'm an under 40 CEO.
The African Renaissance. The concept that the African people and nation shall overcome the current challenges confronting the continent and achieve cultural, scientific, and economic renewal is here, with young men and women taking the lead. Some call them the new school heroes. We call them under 40 CEOs.
Olamide Brown is a British-Nigerian medical doctor. Born in London, England, Ola grew up under the care of foster parents in Lowestoft. Ola graduated from York Medical School at the age of 22, becoming one of the youngest medical doctors in the United Kingdom. After graduation, Ola worked for 10 years with the National Health Service in the United Kingdom as a helicopter pilot with specialized training in aviation medicine. She pioneered the first air-operated emergency medical services in Lagos, Nigeria. Dr. Ola Brown is the managing director of Flying Doctors.
All right, welcome to Under 40 CEOs, Ola.
Thank you.
Can I call you Olamide? Because nobody seems to call you that.
Ola.
Ola is just fine.
Yep.
All right, Ola. You grew up in London, in England. Of course, you were raised by foster parents in Lowestoft. Please tell me about your fondest memories growing up in England.
So I grew up in a tiny town called Lowestoft. So unlike a lot of Nigerians, I had more urban upbringings. I was actually in the middle of nowhere. So I guess one of my fondest memories is actually going back to Lowestoft with my husband. So before he came to Lowestoft, I always used to make fun of him, like whenever he made like a grammar mistake, I'll be like, you know, it's because you went to school in Kano. I was privileged to go to school in the UK, so I don't blame you for making these grammar mistakes. And he actually then saw my school, my primary school, which is like this tiny place with like 3 classrooms. And he was like, never, ever, ever make fun of my school in Kano. Like my school in Kano was 10 times bigger than this place, yeah.
All right, amazing, amazing. So I'm a bit curious to know, foster parents, why?
Because my parents were in full-time education at the time.
Oh, amazing. All right, so you graduated from the York Medical School. I hope I got that right. At the age of 21, becoming one of the youngest medical doctors to graduated at that time. I mean, please do tell me about, you know, the series of events in your childhood that led you to study medicine in the first place.
Okay, so I actually graduated at 22. And what led me to study medicine? I think that it was a combination of things. I was quite good at sciences, and you know, typical Nigerian parents, when you're good at science, they say you should study medicine. But also, I had a younger sister that had sickle cell, and she used to get ill quite frequently, and that made me feel like be in hospital quite frequently, and interact with doctors quite frequently as well. So maybe I glamorized the profession of medicine in the same way that I guess if you grew up in a sort of arts household or a banking household or an oil and gas household, you're more likely to go in that direction. So because I grew up in a place where I was frequently having to interact with doctors, unfortunate circumstances, so I think I glamorized the profession a lot and looked up to them, and you know, everything they did seemed amazing to help my sister, and that's probably why I ended up studying medicine.
Okay, so you worked for 10 years with the National Health Service in the United Kingdom. Please do tell me, I mean, what were those key lessons that you learned working there that has helped you in building your business today? My
first real work with the NHS was actually before I started medical school as a volunteer and on hospital with hospital radio. So I think that was, I mean, we're always encouraged in England before you start medical school to do a lot of work experience in the NHS. So I got a job as a volunteer speaking to patients, and I think that helped me to understand the profession a lot more than I did when I was simply looking as a child, as in I was on the ward and interacting with patients, talking to patients, understanding what their issues were, understanding the challenges of patients. So it really helped me to, even before starting medical school, I think that was a really important job for me, because it really prepared me for not just patients as people that have diseases and, you know, people that you have to cure and people that have ailments, But actually, during my volunteering in the hospital and that work that I did over 2 years, it actually made me see patients as human beings as well. Sometimes I think doctors can be guilty of seeing patients as just numbers. But because I had that interaction where I wasn't actually allowed to treat anyway because I wasn't a doctor, so I was just doing assistance jobs really, it really made me, and because I had hours, I was working towards my Millennium certificate, which means that you have to have, I think it was 500 hours of volunteering, so I had to do quite a lot.
Wow.
And because I was working towards that, it made me see patients in a different light and really prepared me better for medical school.
Right, so after graduating from medical school, did you actually really practice as a medical doctor?
Yes, I did. So there's a training year where I practiced as a medical doctor, and when I was starting my business, I was locuming, so I did practice. But I think right from early on in medical school, I did know that I wanted to build some sort of organization. I wasn't sure what, I wasn't sure whether it was going to be a business or not, but I knew that I would be doing something different from the standard progression of just working for the NHS for the rest of my life.
All right, so your business today, I believe, started as a charity, yes?
No, it started as a business.
Many who are familiar with Ola know the tragic story that propelled and inspired her to start a company, and it had to do with a younger sister who died while traveling in Nigeria.
I read that it had to do with the loss of your sister. And I know it must be difficult to keep talking about this, and you must have talked about this time and time again, but please, for under 40 CEOs, please do share.
I think that a lot of people that start medical businesses do it because they've experienced something wrong with the healthcare system. And definitely what happened to my sister really cemented my decision to try and do something that would impact a lot of patients. As a doctor, like one of the limitations of medical practice, I guess, is that, you know, there's a limit to the number of patients that you can see in a day. So I really wanted to focus on something more public health orientated, where I could change or be part of the change in the healthcare system, change the way the healthcare system works, and hopefully avoid another family having to go through what we went through at the time.
All right, so tell me, how did you start?
When I first came to Nigeria, I didn't really even have a business plan, but I knew that I needed to start from somewhere. So I had an uncle who introduced me, said he would introduce me to somebody in the healthcare space. So he wrote me a letter, actually. So I took that letter to Dr. Piton, who was the former Commissioner for Health for Lagos State. And he wrote me a few more letters. So he wrote me about 7 letters. So I was taking these letters to different people and explaining what I wanted to do. And everybody thought it was a good idea, but nobody wanted to fund me, and I wasn't creditworthy. I didn't own any property. So I stopped pitching to healthcare stakeholders and started talking to some of the people that I felt might need the service. And eventually we got somebody that was so interested that they were willing to pay in advance for the service. So that was how I got my first contract. And from there, the money that I got from there, I was able to lease an aircraft. And that was how I was able to grow the business.
Amazing. So you've been in this business for
almost 10 years
about 10 years now.
Almost.
You know, member of both the American Academy of Aesthetic Surgeons and, of course, the British Medical Association. You were listed among the young global leaders by the World Economic Forum. That was in 2013, I believe. You lectured on entrepreneurship at MIT. I mean, you seem to have done it all. What keeps you motivated? What keeps you going?
I really don't think I've done it all. I think that there's so much to be done, especially in the Nigerian healthcare space, in terms of access to healthcare and enabling people to access healthcare. I'm sure that you and anybody watching can think of at least one case that they know in the past few years where a person has died, not because the help that they needed wasn't available anywhere in Nigeria, but because they simply found themselves at the wrong place at the wrong time. And what we do, the service that we offer at Flying Doctors, is getting the right medical patient to the right hospital facility within the right time frame. So really just saving lives by saving time.
Okay, so today Flying Doctors has a pool of 20 aircrafts.
Absolutely, yeah.
Please do share about the key milestones, you know, on your journey here so far.
In terms of milestones, I think that the biggest milestone for me was maybe in my second to third year of business. Actually becoming an effective leader and being able to run a functional organization, I think is my biggest milestone. I think a lot of people put milestones in terms of aircraft, number of flights, number of years in business, money. That's never been so important to me. I think it has been the relationships that I've been able to build and the team that I've been able to build, and our ability to keep on learning and growing and evolving and sort of meeting their needs. And I think that that's my biggest sort of success as a leader. And if I was to lose that and make all the money in the world, then I feel like I would have failed.
With over 10 years doing business in West Africa, and most especially in Nigeria, a country considered as one of the toughest places to do business in the world, Ola runs a very successful business which ensures that aspiring and emerging business leaders in Africa yearn to glean from her knowledge. This makes her an authority on the subject of entrepreneurship.
You've spoken several times about entrepreneurship in Nigeria and how it will improve the nation's economy, right? But you tell me, how so?
I think we have two major problems in Nigeria with regard to our economic growth. Nigeria is not sustainable right now. Every time we set a budget, almost 70% of the money goes to repaying back debt. We're not making enough money for the number of people that we have. The economy is only growing by 1% every single year, but the population is growing by up to 4% every single year. It's just like saying a man has a family and he's earning a salary of, let's say, 30K per month. When he has 2 children, the 30K is divided by 2 children. If his salary does not increase and he has 5 more children, that 30K now has to be divided between the 7 children. So all of the children are getting poorer. And that's the same state with Nigeria. We're not increasing our income, but we're rapidly increasing our population. So it's up to that man with the 30K a month to now go out and look for other side hustles that he can be doing, or look for a different job that he can be doing to make that pie bigger so he can feed his kids. And I think it's up to Nigerians to start thinking, how can we make our pie bigger so we can feed our kids?
You're a TED Fellow, and of course you've spoken on several other platforms.
Absolutely, yeah.
What's your favorite thing to talk about?
Interesting. That's a really interesting question. What's my favorite thing to talk about? I don't have a favorite thing to talk about, but I like having conversations that meet the needs of my audience, and that depends on who I'm speaking to. So I think that I kind of tailor what I say to the audience. But one thing about my speaking engagements is I also know that I have a lot to learn from the audience, so I try to interact as much as possible. I try and have a few debates with people so that I'm not just talking at people, but I'm also learning from them, because I think everybody has something to teach.
So you've received several nods, awards, accolades, recognition for the work that you do. Please tell me, what are these accolades, what are these nods and awards, what do they truly mean to you?
I think that they're a recognition, I guess, and give me reassurance that we're doing something that is making impact. But for me, I think they're kind of shared awards, not just for me, but for my team. There's a definition of entrepreneurship that I really like, which is like an entrepreneur is somebody with goals that they know that they can't achieve alone. And bringing people along with me is really important. Making sure that, Flying Doctors is a great place to work is really important.
You're a publisher. Please do tell me about your publications.
I wouldn't call myself a publisher, but I've written a few books. I wrote my first book straight out of medical school, and it was aimed at medical students. It was called The MQs in Pediatrics. My second book was called Pre-Hospital Care for Africa, and that was just exploring care outside the hospital, emergency care outside the hospital, what we do getting people to hospital, and the differences and specific challenges that we have in Africa with that space. And then I also have a blog. So I publish regularly on my blog, and I've got an ebook coming out on healthcare policy. I think it will be out next week. So yeah, okay. I like to write.
All right. So A Lady's Guide to Executive Presence is one of the articles that you've written. Please do share some knowledge, from this article.
I think that article kind of piqued people's interest because I told a really personal story about meeting actually one of Nigeria's richest guys, and he just didn't take me seriously because of the way that I behaved at the time. And I guess it was written to try and give women an idea of some of the do's and don'ts about business interaction, simple things like the way you dress and the way that you appear. As a woman in business in Nigeria, disrespect is always part of it. Like, we're not at that stage in Nigeria where men, especially the older generation of men, see women as equals. They don't. So I think that you've got to be able to communicate a sense of competence and a sense of discipline and a sense of focus, and maybe eventually begin to change the narrative around the role of women in modern day Nigerian society.
As an investor in Nigerian businesses, what are the key lessons that you've learned and can share?
I started investing a few years ago in tech startups, and we've created a vehicle for this called Green Tree. Basically, we try and identify the most promising startups and then give them early stage funding to grow. So lessons I've learned as a Nigerian investor, I think the first lesson is that too much money is dangerous. So a lot of people feel that the major thing that they need to start their business is lots and lots of money. They tend to spend it on the wrong things as well. So we've learned over time to let mentorship play much more of a role, access to market, education, training, as well as funding. That's the ultimate formula. One thing that is relatively unique about the Nigerian market is the role of relationships. People all over the world do business with people that they know, like, and trust. But in Nigeria, they do business with people that they really know, really like, and really trust. And it's because we operate in a low trust society, and our justice system doesn't work in a way that produces quick results. So people really do business almost exclusively on referrals. People that they really know, really like, and really trust. And that's so important. I have like a 10-second rule that I tell like entrepreneurs about. And I say that if you cannot explain who your father is in 10 seconds to a room of people and they'll all be like, ah, yes, I know who he is, then you will have a much harder job being an entrepreneur in Nigeria because you're not recognizable and you need to do a lot more work building trust. So if your father is, say, Femi Otedola, you see, I said it in 10 seconds. And a room of people will immediately know that, okay, that's your father. That means that you're recognizable. And that means that you have more credibility. And that means that people can do business with you because they know who to hold if you do anything wrong. So I think that that's definitely one of the biggest lessons that I've learned in investing, the power of relationships in Nigeria, how you can lend your relationships to people, how money doesn't solve all the problems, and how you have to encourage and mentor people to build their relationships and their business skills.
Talking about Femi Otedola, you did write an article about how to build a business if your father is not Femi Otedola. And for those who don't know Femi Otedola, is
like one of the biggest entrepreneurs in Nigeria.
I mean, as a billionaire oil and gas, mogul. So yes, please do tell me how to build a business if my father is not that guy.
So like I said, I think I spoke about it earlier, this society that we're in, because we don't have identifiable people, because we don't have a justice system that works as quickly as it would in the West, it's a low trust society, and we rely on relationships more. We rely on, okay, who is going to stand for this person? Who can we hold if this transaction goes wrong? Who do we know in this company? And I've even heard like people pitch to businesses and they were the cheaper option, but they chose the most expensive option because we know him. We don't know this person. We don't know where he's coming from. We don't know his background. We don't know anything about him. And people are right to be skeptical. But I've built a very successful business without my father being Femi Otedola. So I wrote that article to try and encourage people to realize that it's going to be a bit more difficult. But realize that you also have an advantage over super rich kids as well. Because I have my own contacts. There's only a certain limit. There's a limit to which you can rely on your father's contacts. And I think that if you're from like a super rich home, then you're less inclined to build your own relationships. So you become somebody that is reliant on daddy's relationships, reliant on mommy's relationships, and perhaps you become a bit lazy about serving people and building your relationships.
So what's the current organizational structure at Flying Doctors?
We have sort of a team that does our business development, a team that handles aviation and operations, and a team that handles medical services, and then also external medical services as well. As
a wife, would you say that work-life balance is achievable, or is it a myth?
I think for women in business in Nigeria, the most important decision you make is who you marry. As a woman, because of the context that we live in, it's not egalitarian. Men are seen as the head of house. You really need to have a partner that is supportive and that is accommodating of your career. And because I did marry the right person for me, somebody that is extremely supportive and accommodating of my career, work-life balance hasn't really been an issue. We're partners. We talk about our businesses all the time. We're both geeks. We're both big business geeks. So we listen to audiobooks together. We develop ourselves together. We go to networking events together. So I haven't struggled as much with work-life balance.
All right. I know that at some point we spoke and you have some other business interests outside of health. Please do share about these other businesses.
So mostly it's investing. So I invest in other companies. I invest in other instruments as well, real estate, stocks, shares, etc. So that's what I do outside health.
All right. What are those key challenges that you've had to overcome to make the strides that you've made so far in business?
One of the key challenges were things that are directly in my control, my level of focus, how I develop myself, my level of discipline, how I manage others, how I nurture my network, how I really step into power, and how I try and put my best self forward every day.
How would you describe your leadership style?
I think I would describe myself as a very open, authentic leader. I think that I have built good relationships with my team, and I think I encourage everybody to, not just me, but everybody to take up leadership roles within the organization. I believe that everybody is a leader, and everybody can express traits of leadership in whatever job they're doing. I also believe in having good relationships beyond just office work, understanding people, understanding what they want to achieve, and giving them the skills to do that.
Tell me about your failings as a leader.
I think I've evolved over time, and it's a work in progress. But I feel that I'm quite introverted. I'm a naturally private person, and like obviously I don't dress in this kind of fine suits like you. So I've had to sort of change aspects of my personality to become a better leader. I've had to become a bit more outgoing, a bit more friendly. And I've had to work on my executive presence as well. Like if you met me, say 6-7 years ago, then I would have never thought that it was okay to wear this kind of dress. In fact, I'd have been wearing the same thing every day, and I'd have been wearing flat shoe, natural hair.
All right. So tell me, what values are important to you and your firm?
For me, it's things like hard work and diligence and discipline and focus. For me personally, for my team, we have a single core value which we build everything around, which is excellence. Excellence in medical service, excellence in operations, excellence in HR, excellence in everything we do.
Amazing. So what would you say is the biggest letdown you've experienced in your career so far?
There have been so many letdowns. But I think one thing that all my letdowns have in common is I overestimated what people could do or what people were willing to do for me. Most of my letdowns have been like I was expecting somebody to do something for me and then, you know, they didn't do it.
From a young lady many never took seriously to a businesswoman commanding great executive presence, Ola keeps evolving into this enigma that many revere. However, what does she do with her downtime? And what are key lifestyle decisions? We have to know.
All right, so I have a few quick-fire questions for you. What do you love to eat?
I pound the jam. I'm from Ekiti.
What's your fashion style?
Very simple.
What are your favorite brands to wear?
And wear any brands.
What other CEOs do you currently look up to?
Tara, Udo Konjo, my girlfriends that I spend a lot of time with. Those are the two main ones that I really look up to.
What's your favorite car to drive?
My Toyota Prado has never let me down, so that's my favorite car right now.
What's your favorite travel destination?
I like to holiday within Africa, so I'd probably say for now Cape Verde.
Tell me, what's your favorite book of all time?
Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. Yeah.
All right, what book are you reading right now?
I'm rereading Jimovie's book, which I love. I love his book.
It's amazing. Tell me lastly, Ola, what makes you happy?
Being able to achieve my goals makes me happy.
All right. Thank you for coming on Under 40 CEOs.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Dr. Olamide Brown, and you too can be an Under 40 CEO.